Is ultralight backpacking gear actually worth it? Or is it just a very expensive way to make your backpack slightly lighter, your bank account significantly lighter, and your personality somehow 40% more annoying? Because this is the problem with ultralight gear. On one hand, lighter gear absolutely can make hiking easier. It can reduce fatigue, reduce stress on your joints, and help you move faster. But on the other hand, there is a point where the benefits start getting smaller, the prices start getting stupid, and you end up paying hundreds of dollars to save minimal weight. So in this video, I want to look at whether ultralight backpacking gear is actually worth it from 3 different angles: cost, performance, and durability. Because the answer is not ultralight is amazing or ultralight is a scam. The answer is getting lighter is worth it up to a point. Firstly, we need to define what we're actually talking about. In hiking, people usually talk about base weight. Base weight means everything in your pack except for your consumables, so no food, water, or fuel. So your pack, shelter, sleep system, clothing, stove, electronics, first aid, and all those other tiny little items you swear are essential but somehow never use. Generally speaking, a traditional backpack might have a base weight of over 20 or 30 pounds. Lightweight is usually under 20 pounds and ultralight is generally considered under 10 pounds. And super ultralight is under 5 pounds, which is where I assume you're legally required to sleep under a napkin and eat couscous from your shoe. But the important thing is this: these are informal categories, they're not laws. There is no international ultralight council that kicks down your tent door if your base weight is 10.2 pounds. The number is just a guide, and this matters because people often get obsessed with hitting an arbitrary number instead of asking the better question: does this actually make my hiking better? So let's start with the obvious. A lighter pack is easier to carry, but the research does back this up. The metabolic cost of walking increases in direct proportion to the load that you carry. In plain English, every extra kilo in your pack costs you energy. It might not feel huge over 5 minutes, but over 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 days, or a full through hike, that cost really does add up. And this is where reducing pack weight can make a massive difference. If you go from a heavy 30-pound base weight down to a 15 or 20-pound base weight, that is a real change. You will feel that. Your legs will feel that and your back is going to feel that. Biomechanically, this makes sense too. A heavier pack changes your posture. It increases your trunk lean, it changes your stride, and it increases ground reaction forces. And when you're tired walking downhill or moving over rough terrain, that extra load becomes more noticeable, especially through the knees, hips, ankles, feet, and the lower back. So yes, from a physio perspective, lighter gear absolutely has a strong case, but there is a catch. The body can tolerate load pretty well up to a point. A common rule of thumb is to keep your total loaded backpack under about 20% of your body weight. For day hiking, closer to 10% is even better. Above 30 to 35%, things generally start getting ugly much faster. More fatigue, more compensation, more joint stress. So this is the key point of the whole video. The biggest benefit is not going from a 12-pound base weight to an 8-pound base weight. The biggest benefit is going from a heavy setup to a moderate or light setup. So if you're carrying a 30-pound base weight, getting down to 20 pounds is just huge. Getting from 20 to 15 pounds is still useful, but getting from 12 to 9 pounds, well, that is where the benefits are a little bit smaller, the cost is much higher, and the trade-offs become a bit more serious because your body gets the same benefit per kilo removed, but your wallet does not. The first few kilos are often cheap or free. You start to leave things behind, or you stop packing for every possible disaster, you repackage food, or you remove duplicate clothing. That is the best value weight savings you can get. But once you've already done that, the remaining weight gets much more expensive to remove. That is where people start buying Dyneema shelters, carbon fiber tent stakes, frameless packs, titanium spoons, and toothbrushes that look like they were attacked by a dog. So this is kind of where ultralight starts to become a little bit tricky, because lightweight gear can be great value, but true ultralight gear can get expensive very quickly. The classic example is shelters. A standard lightweight tent made from syn nylon or sil poly might already be pretty light, durable, and good value. But then you move into Dyneema, composite fabric, or DCF. DCF is very light, doesn't absorb much water, it doesn't sag as much when wet, and it has great tear resistance, but it does cost significantly more. For example, a standard Durston X-Mid is already a very light and capable shelter. The DCF X-Mid Pro cuts close to a pound of weight, but costs around $780 which is roughly 1,000 AUD depending on the exchange rate. That is a lot of money to save weight. Now, for a thru hiker doing thousands of kilometers or even hundreds of Ks, that might be completely rational. If you're hiking all day, every day for months, saving a pound from your shelter is just a pretty big deal. But for someone doing a few weekend trips a year, then that is an expensive way to become slightly more smug at the trailhead. And you kind of see this everywhere once you start looking for it. You might buy a lighter pack and then realize it only carries comfortably if the rest of your gear is also lighter, and now you've accidentally started a financial side quest. This is why Ultralight has diminishing returns. The first few pounds are cheap, the last few pounds are expensive, and the closer you get to true ultralight, the more you pay per gram saved. Now, this is where I do need to defend ultralight a bit, because people often say ultralight gear is just always expensive, and that's not completely fair. The cheapest way to go ultralight is to carry less. That costs nothing. Actually, it saves money because you stop buying tiny gadgets that solve problems you don't have. You can also build a very light setup without buying the most expensive gear. A lot of cottage brands make lightweight gear that is cheaper than big mainstream premium gear items. For example, some heavy packs for big brands can weigh over 4 or 5 pounds and still cost more than lighter cottage brands. So the issue is not lightweight gear versus heavy gear. The issue is more smart lightweight versus obsessive ultralight. A good lightweight pack, shelter, and sleep system can get most hikers into that 15 to 20 pound base weight range. And for most people, that is just the sweet spot for hiking. That is where you get most of the physical benefit without needing to sell a kidney for a tarp. Now, let's talk durability, because this is the part of ultralight that often gets ignored in gear reviews. A lighter material is not always worse, but as a general rule, when you push gear to the extreme, you start making compromises. DCF is a good example. It is light and it performs incredibly well in certain conditions, and it's pretty easy to repair, but it can be more translucent and it can get hot in the sun, and over time it can start to develop pinholes, delamination, and wear issues. A lot of experienced users talk about DCF shelters lasting around 150 to 200 nights before serious wear becomes a bit more obvious. Sil nylon or sil poly shelters may last 300 nights or more with pretty good care. Now, that's going to vary massively depending on terrain, weather, UV exposure, how well you pitch it, and whether you treat your gear like equipment or like a rented lawn chair. But the point is that the lightest and most expensive option is not always the longest lasting. And that changes the cost equation quite a bit, because if a DCF shelter costs twice as much and lasts half as long, the cost per night can be much higher. And again, for a serious thru hiker doing long mileage, that can still be worth it. If that shelter makes every day easier for 5 months, then fair play. I have an X-Mid Pro and I really do love that tent, especially for my longer thru hikes. But is it worth the exorbitant amount I paid for it? I don't know. I think for me, most likely, but I don't think everyone needs the Pro version. Now, here's one of the most important practical points. Weight on your feet costs far more energy than weight on your pack. Classic load carriage research suggests that weight on the feet can cost roughly 5 times as much energy as the same weight carried on the torso. So saving 200 grams from your shoes can matter more than saving 200 grams from your backpack. That is why footwear choice is just such a huge factor. A lighter trail runner can make a bigger difference to how fresh your legs feel, rather than obsessing over whether your tent stakes are titanium or aluminium. Same with trekking poles. If your poles are heavy and you're swinging them thousands of times a day, that does matter too. But you still need to keep in mind that this is not permission to wear some flimsy light shoe that doesn't suit your feet. The lightest shoe is not automatically the best shoe, and if you need support, cushioning, grip, or durability, then those things are going to factor into the decision-making process as well. This is not about going stupid light, it's just about removing weight where it actually improves your performance. Now let's talk knees, because downhill hiking is where pack weight really starts bullying your joints. When you go downhill, the forces through the knees are much higher. A rough rule is that every pound carried can add around 4 to 6 pounds of force through the knee per step when descending. So a 30-pound pack can add something like 120 to 180 pounds of extra force through the knee per step. Now multiply that by thousands of downhill steps. That's why your knees sometimes feel personally attacked by a mountain, especially on the way down. This is where lighter gear can be very useful, especially for people with knee pain, hip pain, back issues, or previous injuries. Research also shows that trekking poles can reduce lower limb forces and joint loading during downhill walking. They don't make you weightless, but they can offload some stress from the knees and the legs. The trade-off is slightly more upper body work and sometimes a small increase in oxygen use. So if your pack weight is still high, don't obsess first over replacing a shelter to save 300 grams. Look at your footwear, use trekking poles as well, reduce total load, and stop packing like every overnight hike is an expedition into Mordor. This brings us to one of the best terms in backpacking: stupid light. Andrew Skirka has used this phrase to describe going so light that you stop taking gear that is actually necessary for the conditions. And this is the dark side of ultralight: leaving behind proper rain gear, taking an underpowered sleep system, using a shelter that isn't suitable for the weather, not carrying enough insulation, and skipping basic first aid. This is not a skill. This is gambling with a lighter backpack. The goal is not to be the lightest person on the trail, but it should be to have the right gear for the right trip. Weight matters, but so does durability, comfort, safety, reliability, ease of use, and cost. So who is ultralight actually worth it for? First, through hikers and high mileage hikers. If you're walking huge distances day after day, the value of weight savings just goes up dramatically. You use the gear enough to justify the cost, and the physical savings compound over time. Second, people with joint or injury concerns. If you have knee pain, hip pain, or some back issues, or a history of overuse injuries, then reducing load will make a real difference for you. Thirdly, smaller framed hikers, because gear weight doesn't scale perfectly with body size. A tent weighs the same whether you're 60 kilos or 95 kilos. So lighter hikers can end up carrying a higher percentage of body weight, even with the same gear. Fourth, frequent hikers. If you're out all the time, cost per use matters. An expensive shelter or pack makes more sense if you're using it 40 nights a year instead of 4. So here's how I'd approach it. Stage 1, weigh everything and carry less. This is completely free. Make a gear list, weigh every item, look at what you actually use, remove duplicates, cut fear-based packing, repackage food and toiletries, and this alone will help to make a pretty big difference for you. Stage 2 is upgrade the big 3. Your pack, your shelter, and your sleep system. The next stage is only going true ultralight if the math really works out. If you hike a lot, you've got no injuries, or you're doing long distance trails, maybe DCF shelters, frameless packs, and premium quilts will start to make a difference for you. But if you're already under a 15-pound base weight, further spending is mostly preference. Not health, not necessity, preference. And that's completely fine. Just be honest about it. It's okay to buy expensive gear because you like it. We all do that. I've done it plenty of times. So is ultralight backpacking gear actually worth it? Well, yes, but only to a point. Getting lighter is absolutely worth it if your pack is heavy. The goal should be light enough to enjoy the hiking, durable enough to trust the gear, comfortable enough to sleep well, safe enough for the conditions, and affordable enough that you can still pay rent and occasionally eat food that isn't freeze-dried. And if your gear already does that, well, then you've probably already won, even if some bloke on Reddit thinks your toothbrush is too long. Speaking of gear, here's a rundown of the gear that I'm taking on my next big through hike across the Cape Wrath Trail in Scotland. It's right here. I think you'll love it. I'll see you there.